Who are they? The angels that are bound under the Euphrates Sea. The Bible, a book of ancient wisdom, of profound prophecies, of divine revelations. We speak of angels, don't we? Of heavenly hosts, messengers of God, beings of light and glory. But what if I told you that beneath the surface of our world, hidden from human sight, there exists a prison unlike any other? Not of stone and iron, but of immense crushing water. A place where beings of immense power, celestial beings, are held in chains, chains forged not by man, but by divine judgment. What dark rebellion could have led to such a fate? What monstrous transgression could merit an eternal bond in the deep? And why, after millennia of silent captivity, are the scriptures suddenly pointing to a terrifying moment when these very chains might be broken? Tonight, we plunge into the chilling mystery of the angels imprisoned beneath the sea, a mystery whispered in ancient texts, a prophecy that speaks not of symbolic fears, but of a literal, earth-shattering release. Our journey begins not in a fiery heaven, but in the cryptic verses of the New Testament. The Apostle Peter, in his second letter, drops a chilling hint, almost a passing thought, that shatters our preconceived notions of angelic perfectibility. He writes in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment." Chains of darkness. Think about that. These aren't metaphorical chains. The Greek word used, Sarah, refers to actual bonds, shackles, fetters. And the place? Tartarus. Not the familiar Gehenna, but a deeper, darker abyss, a place of confinement, reserved specifically for rebellious spiritual beings. Peter isn't alone in this revelation. Jude, another apostle, echoes the sentiment in his brief but powerful letter, verse 6. "And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day." 2. Abandoned their proper dwelling. This is key. These were not mere errant spirits. These were beings of authority, of specific divine assignments, who chose to cross an unforgivable line. The Bible doesn't shy away from their sin. It points to a time before the Great Flood, when a significant rebellion occurred. Ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, though not canonized in all traditions, elaborate on this, speaking of watchers, a group of angels who descended to earth. Their transgression, mating with human women, corrupting humanity, teaching forbidden knowledge, and filling the earth with violence and evil. This immense defilement of creation, this direct defiance of divine order, resulted in their immediate and severe punishment. They were not merely cast out, they were bound, imprisoned in that desolate abyss, Tartarus, awaiting a final, ultimate judgment. This wasn't a temporary timeout. It was a permanent confinement, a stark warning against the consequences of heavenly rebellion. But then, the mystery deepens, and our focus shifts to a very specific location. The Book of Revelation, with its vivid apocalyptic visions, paints an even more chilling picture. In Revelation chapter 9, as the sixth trumpet sounds, a voice cries out to the sixth angel, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." The Euphrates. Why there? This isn't just any river. From the Garden of Eden, a river of life, to a boundary of ancient empires, a stage for countless conflicts, the Euphrates holds immense symbolic and historical weight in biblical prophecy. It has been a dividing line, a pathway for armies, a place of both blessing and judgment. And according to this chilling prophecy, it is also a prison, a cosmic bottleneck, a spiritual fault line, perhaps even a gateway where these specific 4 angels have been held for millennia. Prepared for an exact hour, day, month, and year. The precision of this prophecy is astounding. It speaks not of a general future event, but of a divinely appointed moment, a specific release on God's timetable. These aren't just any rebellious angels. These are 4 specific, named or identified beings held in a precise location for a predetermined release, and their purpose upon release, not redemption, not mercy, but a horrifying act of judgment. To kill 1/3 of mankind, 1/3 of humanity, an unimaginable scale of death, a devastation so profound it almost defies comprehension. The question that echoes in the silence is, what kind of beings are these that God would use them for such a cataclysmic purpose? Are they merely instruments of wrath, or are they ancient, malevolent forces held in check only by divine decree, now unleashed for a specific, terrifying purpose? For millennia, they have remained chained, silent, hidden. But the clock ticks towards that appointed hour. The Euphrates, an ancient witness to human history, holds a terrifying secret. And the question for us today is not if they will be released, but when, and what will happen when the chains break and the deep yields its prisoners. For millennia they endured, bound, suppressed. The Euphrates, a silent guard over a terrifying secret, but the divine clock, precise and unyielding, ticked down to its appointed moment. And when that hour, that day, that month, that year arrived, the unimaginable happened. The chains, not of mortal iron but of celestial darkness, began to yield. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. But this drying was more than a mere drought. It was the unsealing of an ancient prison. As the waters receded, revealing the parched riverbed, something else was unveiled. Not just dry land, but the very entrance to Tartarus, where those ancient rebellious angels had been confined. And then they emerged, not in a blaze of glory, but from the depths of darkness, released from their long-suffering bonds. The 4 angels, identified in prophecy not as agents of God's light, but as instruments of his wrath, and with them an army unlike any seen before or since. Revelation 9 describes it with chilling detail, a cavalry of 20,000 times 10,000, 200 million. Imagine that number, a force so vast it defies human comprehension. And their description, it is one of grotesque power and horrifying intent. Their horses, not mere beasts, but creatures with heads like lions, and from their mouths poured fire, smoke, and sulfur. And their riders, clothed in breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulphurous yellow. This was no ordinary army. This was a supernatural host, an embodiment of divine judgment. The purpose, as foretold, was chillingly clear: to kill 1/3 of mankind. This was not war as humanity knew it. This was an orchestrated execution, a mass decimation on a scale that dwarfs every plague, every conflict, every tragedy in recorded history. The fire, smoke, and sulfur that issued from the mouths of these monstrous horses were the instruments of this unprecedented destruction. They brought not just death, but torment, a torment not unlike the suffering of hell itself. For those who survived the initial onslaught, the horror did not cease. The balance of humanity, hardened by their own wickedness, remained unrepentant. Despite witnessing a judgment of such immense scale, despite seeing the very fabric of their world torn apart by these unleashed entities, they still refused to turn from their idolatry, their murders, their sorceries, their sexual immorality, or their thefts. A profound, almost unfathomable stubbornness in the face of absolute terrifying power. And because of this unrepentant heart, the woes continued. The release of the Euphrates angels was but one terror. The prophetic scroll continues, describing another wave of torment. From the smoke of the bottomless pit, a swarm emerged, not ordinary locusts, but grotesque scorpion-like creatures. Their power was not to kill, but to torment men for 5 months, with a pain like the sting of a scorpion. These were not insects of this earth, but beings from the abyss itself, commanded by a king, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon, destroyer. Imagine a torment so excruciating that men would seek death, but death would flee from them. This was the consequence of a world that refused to acknowledge its creator, even when faced with his undeniable power and terrifying justice. The angels of the Euphrates and the demonic hordes that followed were not random chaos. They were part of an unfolding divine plan designed to shake humanity to its core, to offer a final, desperate chance for repentance. The story of the angels chained beneath the Euphrates and the devastating consequences of their release serves as a chilling testament to the gravity of sin and the unwavering nature of divine justice. But even in the midst of such darkness, even amidst the unrepentant cries of humanity, the biblical narrative presses forward. For these apocalyptic events are not the end itself, but the final, terrifying overture to a grander, ultimate reckoning. The world is being prepared, purged by fire and woe, for a final, glorious revelation, a time when the very heavens will be rolled back, and the one who holds the keys to death and Hades will return. The chains may have broken in the deep, but the ultimate authority, the ultimate victory, belongs to another. And the final act of this cosmic drama is yet to be played. The screams of the tormented had ceased. The fires of judgment had burned their course. The earth, ravaged and scarred, bore the indelible marks of divine wrath and human stubbornness. Humanity, those who remained, had faced plagues and horrors beyond imagination, yet many clung to their idols, their defiance etched into their very souls. The angels of the Euphrates, instruments of a terrible cleansing, had fulfilled their devastating purpose. But even as the dust settled, the cosmic drama was far from over. This was not the end. It was the agonizing prelude to the ultimate beginning. For all the chaos and terror unleashed, the narrative of creation points to a single sovereign hand, the same God who bound the rebellious angels in the deepest abyss, who prepared them for their hour, was also orchestrating a final glorious redemption. The biblical story, even in its darkest chapters, is always moving towards a climactic revelation, the return of the King. And then the heavens themselves were rolled back. Like a scroll, the sun and moon dimmed before a light far greater, for he appeared, the Lion of Judah, the Lamb who was slain, Jesus Christ himself. He descended not in fire and smoke, but in unblemished glory, seated upon a white horse, followed by the armies of heaven, robed in white. His eyes were like blazing fire, and on his head were many crowns. From his mouth came a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. This was the ultimate reckoning, the final judgment of all who had rejected light for darkness, truth for lies. The beast, the false prophet, the remaining unrepentant ones, all met their decisive end. And the ancient adversary, Satan himself, the architect of all rebellion, who once deceived a third of the angels and led them astray, was finally seized, not to be released for a time, but cast into the lake of burning sulfur, to be tormented day and night forever and ever. The age of woe, the reign of sin, the torment of the fallen, all brought to their definitive close. The angels of the Euphrates and all their demonic kin were but pieces in a grander divine tapestry, their temporary release serving to highlight the profound justice and ultimate victory of the Almighty. For after every tear, every sorrow, every judgment comes a renewal, and so the story culminates not in destruction, but in restoration, a new heaven and a new earth. A city of pure gold, with gates of pearl, where there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. The Former things will have passed away. The ultimate prison will be for evil itself, and the ultimate freedom for those who chose the light. The terrifying mystery of the angels bound in the deep ultimately serves to illuminate a far greater truth: God's unwavering sovereignty, His perfect justice, and His boundless love that triumphs over all darkness, bringing forth a glorious, eternal dawn. The chains may have broken, but the kingdom of God stands forever, unbroken, undisputed, and eternal. If this message blessed you, be sure to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more deep, Bible-based stories that inspire your faith.